A kind girl paid for a poor man's meal unaware he was a millionaire. Days later, love found them in a bustling little diner tucked away in the heart of a quiet town. A young woman named Emily sat sipping her coffee. Emily was known in her community for her compassionate heart. She worked hard as a teacher, living modestly but always finding ways to help those in need. One chilly afternoon, while Emily was enjoying her break, she noticed an elderly man sitting a few tables away. His clothes were worn and frayed, and he appeared to be counting coins with trembling hands. The waitress stood nearby, her face painted with a look of concern, as she explained that the man didn't have enough to cover his meal. Without thinking twice, Emily got up and walked over to the man. "Excuse me, sir," she said kindly. "Please allow me to take care of this for you." She handed the waitress some money to pay for his meal and smiled warmly at the man. The man looked up at her with teary eyes. "Why would you do that for me?" he asked. "Because everyone deserves a good meal," Emily replied simply. "Take care of yourself." The man nodded, his voice cracking as he said, "Thank you, young lady. You've done more for me than you know." The twist of fate. What Emily didn't know was that the man wasn't who he seemed. He was actually Charles, a reclusive millionaire who had built his fortune in real estate, but had grown disillusioned with wealth. Disguised as a poor man, he had been visiting different places to observe how people treated those who seemed to be struggling. Emily's selfless act touched him deeply. A few days later, Emily returned to the diner after her shift. To her surprise, the same man approached her, only this time he was dressed in an expensive suit. "Emily," he said, smiling warmly, "I'm Charles. You probably don't recognize me, but I'm the man whose meal you paid for a few days ago. I haven't stopped thinking about your kindness." Emily blinked in surprise. "Oh, I didn't expect to see you again. I'm glad you're doing well." Charles chuckled and explained his true identity, sharing the story of how he had been searching for genuine kindness in the world. "Your selflessness reminded me of the good that still exists. I'd like to repay you not just for the meal, but for restoring my faith in humanity." The bond that blossomed. Over the weeks that followed, Charles and Emily began spending time together. Despite his wealth, Charles found joy in Emily's simple outlook on life. She, in turn, admired his humility and the depth of his character. What started as gratitude turned into friendship, and before long, their bond blossomed into something neither of them had expected: love. Charles, inspired by Emily, began using his wealth to fund projects that benefited the less fortunate, while Emily continued her teaching, encouraged by Charles's support.
A life transformed by kindness. Years later, as they stood hand in hand at a community event they had organized together, Emily looked at Charles and smiled. "It's amazing how one small act of kindness brought us here," she said. Charles nodded. "It wasn't just the act, it was the heart behind it. You showed me that love and compassion are the greatest riches of all." Their story became an inspiration for many, proving that even the smallest gesture can lead to life-changing outcomes. Emily's kindness didn't just pay for a meal. It paved the way for a future filled with love, hope, and generosity. And so, they live happily ever after, proof that destiny has a way of bringing people together in the most unexpected and beautiful ways.